Accessing.
When TV and radio collide.
Love it.
Wow. This is what you get. You're listening to JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars.
Don't touch that dial.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Wouldn't it be nice? Brian Wilson, dead at 82. Great tunes. May he rest. One of the best rock and rollers to ever do it. Ushering in a different era, right? Of music. Kind of that. It's what? Was I too happy saying that he died?
A little bit.
Fine. Play Kokomo next time. I'll bring it down for you. I'll make it more romantic. I guess I was trying to do like a Casey Kasem. Brian Wilson, dead at 82.
I don't think Casey Kasem did obits.
Of course he did.
He spun the hits. He didn't do obits. I promise you that.
He'll be remembered. I'm not trying to be insensitive. He lived a long, good life.
I know you're not.
It's not like he died in a plane crash today.
I don't think anything you just did was it was a lot of unintentional comedy that just took place. That's all.
Sorry.
And now I'm the one laughing on camera right now at Brian Wilson passing away at the age of 82, not you.
Fine. Give us your Koppel voice then.
Tragic news today.
See, that's
Koppel is Tom Brokaw.
No, that's what it is. Sorry.
Terrible.
And that's more rude, by the way.
Brian Wilson, eaten by a pack of wolves.
Yeah.
He was delicious.
See? Now we can get way weird with it. Welcome back to the program.
See, now I'm the bad guy.
You are. It's always coming back to that. Let me see here. Our show is brought to you by G2G Bars. All natural ingredients and no preservatives make the G2G Bar the perfect protein bar. Give it a shot today. Costco, Holiday Oil, Maverick, Associated Foods, and many other retailers in the refrigerated section. Go check it out. Let's kick off the hour with with the cut here. We'll jump in because I've got some things for you to listen to. First, we'll listen to Kirby Smart here talking about college football, but let's kick things off officially with the cut.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Doug Smith brings you this portion of the program, an incredible selection of Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram, and now Mitsubishi in the Doug Smith family of dealerships in American Fork, Spanish Fork, and in Linden. Nobody knows cars like Doug. I went back and listened to the word salad that Kirby Smart had at the SEC business meetings when he was trying to explain that we're doing this for the good of the game. And it was a roundabout way, and all these coaches get up there and go, now this is my opinion. It's not the conference's opinion. But they defend the conference, obviously. They defend one another as head coaches also. The SEC is in an amazing position. And that position is they can pull the strings in almost all of these conversations that are happening, even though the Big 12, from a revenue standpoint, technically is a more valuable conference. I think because they have 18. Do they have 18 teams? Yeah, they have 18 teams in their conference compared to the 16, I think, in the SEC.
Correct.
Either way, they're about the same when it comes to their opinion matters the most. They're the power two, right? No question. Kirby Smart is one of the coaches that is at the very top of that heap. And he brought up talking about college football, focusing on progress and not just trying to focus on self-preservation. He was talking about making the college football playoff more competitive, but making sure that we get the best teams in. Here's what he said.
Yeah, I think I have a good understanding of where it is and the decisions that have to be made, which I don't think those decisions get answered here. I think we all think this is like, we're going to have these answers when we come out of it. There's a lot of thinking heads, a lot of people that have to come together, a lot of agreeing that has to be done to get where we want to go. I think we have a small sample size right now of what we did, and we're going to get another sample size right this year under similar format, maybe a little different with the seeding part, but where it goes in the future, I don't know where that goes. And I'm not looking at it in a self-preservation mode, which happens a lot in college football. These meetings are that way, conferences are that way. I've learned from the best in the business that you're trying to constantly sustain the game and make the game better and not just do it for what's best for me or just for self-preservation. And I'm not saying that anybody is doing that, but I'm saying we got to look at it from that perspective. And that's hard. I look at women's softball, I look at men's basketball, and I look at men's baseball, and it just absolutely blows my mind how the SEC can end up with the teams they end up with in those positions. Okay, now some of those you can say are play-in because maybe they went through a regional, and you look at the women's softball World Series, you look at men's baseball, you look at men's basketball, 13 of 16, 14 of 16 in their larger pools. But when you look at what they're able to do, and there's no outcry, and there's nobody beating a drum saying that it's completely unfair. They do a lot of things based on RPI. They do a lot of things based on strength of schedule, and they reward teams for that. I have a hard time seeing Ole Miss, Alabama, South Carolina not being in the best teams last year, and that for me is a big part of the SEC. And people want to say, well, you need to play 9 games, you need to play 8 games. We don't really know which one of those is until we know the playoff format. But I beg everybody in this room the question: would we have been better off not playing Clemson last year and playing another SEC game to make 9 games? How would that have been better for the SEC? How would that have been better for Georgia? I don't think it would have. I think those teams you play outside your conference verify your strength.
I would call on you to also verify your strength. How does it help? When he does the whole I'm not in self-preservation mode, it's a half lie, right? Or a half truth, right? They aren't. Look, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, these teams are not in self-preservation mode. You might have coaches in self-preservation mode periodically, but those programs are not in self-preservation mode. They are in a how can we stay on top of this thing and point at others that are further down the hill than us and laugh as they're trying to climb the mountain. That's not self-preservation. Self-preservation is to make sure that you can keep a foothold on the mountain so you don't fall off of it. That's not this. Don't fall for that, by the way. Don't fall for Kirby Smart telling you that I'm not doing this for self-preservation. I just think this is for the good of the game. Then make it better for the game. And the best way to do it is for the SEC to stop baking in easier games under the guise of, but the SEC is so much more difficult. It's so much more difficult. And so you play one fewer game in your conference. And so now you have, instead of having a more standard way of looking at it, JJ, you've got one conference who thinks it's a tough thing for us, so we're going to take a little bit of a break. We're only going to play 8 conference games. And not only that, we're going to prioritize putting other garbage teams in our out-of-conference schedules. You and I went back and we were talking about how we made fun of to the ends of the earth before their season even started, that Michigan, the national championship year of Michigan. We weren't talking about them as national champions. We were talking about it because Jim Harbaugh, if you'll recall, had to miss was it the first 4 games of the season and the last 2 prior to the national championship game? Their head coach missed 6 games of the 14 that they played that year off of alleged cheating, right? And that's a whole other issue.
Alleged.
No. Sorry,
haven't they admitted it at this point?
That's my old news. That's my old news guy in me.
I do the same thing.
The alleged cheating scandal. I don't. But see, we looked at that schedule and it was so ridiculous. He's like, fine, you know what? I'm going to self-inflict some punishments on ourselves. I won't coach against UNLV at the Big House on September 1st or whatever it was. I won't coach against Rutgers. I won't coach against. I can't remember the teams. It was a garbage list of teams that they had to play. And then we looked at the rest of their schedule and we went, oh my goodness. And that's with a 9-team conference schedule in the Big Ten. We still looked at it and went, oh, what a soft schedule. The article that I was reading today was like, hey, we got to figure out a way to standardize this thing.
Agree.
And I said, perfect. And one of the suggestions, and I'm going to take it a step further, but the biggest suggestion out of this was every Power 4 team plays at least 10 Power 4 teams on their schedule. And look, sometimes you get a UCLA who's garbage. Sometimes you get a Stanford who's terrible. Sometimes you'll get a really down year for a Florida State team. And that happens. But when you put Florida State on the schedule, you don't think to yourself, oh, good. Eastern Florida University, right? That's very different. And so the call is for everybody to at least play 10 Power 4. So fine, don't play your 8 conference games. But you can't sneak in 2 cupcakes because you already have the one that we all make fun of every year. Okay? And I'll take it a step further. Stop playing FCS schools. And I'm not just talking to the SEC on this. You've heard me say this. No Power 4 team should ever play an FCS team. And I know that you're out there going, it's good for the smaller schools. It's a payout. Is it really good, though? Is it really good? They benefit because they get a little bit of a financial boost. But does that help that team at all? Does Southern Utah get something out of a 73-7 game?
They get a paycheck. That's it.
They get the paycheck.
What do the fans get? What do you get
does the team go? Do you remember what is it? These guys on the team, what do they have a story when they go?
As the consumer?
Zero.
Good football.
Have you been to those games? We've all been to those games at Rice Eccles Stadium. They started at 6 p.m.
No disrespect to Southern Utah last year.
They're a Thursday 6 p.m. game, and guess what?
The gap between a Power 4 and an FCS is so massive right now. Like, that game was over in the first quarter, and it's like, this feels like a scrimmage.
Look, BYU
it feels
versus
like the ones going against the twos. And that, again, no disrespect.
BYU versus Portland State this year, isn't that their FCS opponent? First game of the year? BYU versus Portland State. Like, are you really? We're not going to get excited about a season for something like that. And I think it's born out of the old school thought of, hey, man, we got to start piling up some wins here. And this is as good as it gets for like a preseason game for us.
What would you rather watch, BYU Portland State or BYU Utah State?
Oh, we can't even go down that road because that makes you insane trying to talk about why it is that people can't get together and just have a normal football game.
Rather watch Utah Southern Utah or Utah Boise State?
Of course. And so the rule should be if you are a Power 4 team, you cannot play an FCS team. And you know what? The FCS teams, you can play G5 programs.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely fine with that.
That makes sense, and they would actually be more competitive.
And they are more competitive.
Pull more upsets.
Yes, they are more competitive.
I just feel like the gap is too big now between the Power 4 and the FCS. It's 2 steps up. Why are we playing those
You
games?
brought something up brilliant during the pre-show, and that is because I was looking at it and I was going through the Big 12 schedule, for example, and there are hardly any teams. There are no teams that are playing less than 10 Power 4 teams in their conference. But out of the SEC, how many were playing less than 10 Power 4 opponents?
All but 3.
All but 3. And the 3 that were on that list, Alabama, it was a couple of the bigger ones, but even then you're kind of looking at it and you're like, good. They scheduled a couple of out-of-conference games that were Power 4 teams. But Georgia this year, Kirby Smart, to say, this is the part that makes me nuts because Kirby Smart, and he's not the one who makes the schedule, but Wink, he kind of is, right? Their schedule this year.
Alabama, Florida, and South Carolina, by the way, are the only ones that are playing 10 regular season games against Power 4
Those are the only ones.
Did you know Baylor and TCU this year are playing 11?
And there are a lot of years that 11 games. And by the way, if you're the Big 12, you go, well, that's your disparity right there. You could add from an overall picture standpoint, from a quality of the schedule standpoint, it doesn't matter. It'd be the quality of record that would get affected immediately, which is what the SEC sits on and goes, oh, can you believe it? Okay, Alabama or Georgia, okay. Georgia, Alabama, all these teams, they have what do they have there? They play some teams from a bunch of FCS conferences, the Ohio Valley Conference from the SoCon. It's SoCon week, right? It's a joke, right? Because they all play all these same teams, and here's the worst part, it's usually around Thanksgiving. Everybody else is absolutely trying to catch their breath on the sideline during their difficult conference schedules, and Georgia goes, man, we got to play, checks notes, Arkansas Pine Bluff, right? Like, these are the kinds of things you're putting up with. So Georgia's football schedule, let me roll it out this year, because they are only playing 9. They're only playing, let me see here. No, they're only playing 9 freaking Power 4 teams this year, okay? Marshall is opening up the season. Or they're opening up the season against Marshall. Austin Peay comes to town the next week. By the way, if you're Georgia fans, are those 2 games fun for you guys? Are those 2 games fun? And I know you played Oregon a couple of years ago, and maybe sometimes you do these little, but you get a massive payday, by the way, out of those.
I can't wait to watch Ole Miss in the Citadel in November.
Okay, do you see what I'm saying? Do you see why this is a problem? Because Marshall and Austin Peay start the season off for Georgia. Great. Then they go through their very difficult 8-game schedule. It is. Of course it is. But instead of facing a 9th, they made the 8 conference. This is why it makes me nuts too, because they made the conference only an 8-game schedule for the 14 playoff to give themselves a benefit for that. And now they're reaping the benefits of a 12-team and now a 16-team playoff because they're arguing about, no, that we're going to stay at this 8 games because we're just so much more difficult. And all they're doing is giving themselves another advantage. So make the other conferences. Have everybody get together and say, play 10 Power 4 teams a year. And look, if it's fine. Their out-of-conference schedule, like I said, is Charlotte, Marshall, Austin Peay. Does that sound like a national champion type team? And then Georgia Tech is their like longtime rival who they play last game of the year.
Who may or may not be good.
And most years they're not.
Yep.
And most years they're not. So that's Georgia, who is one of the top 3 teams.
But we're supposed to worship at the Georgia altar.
Right. Or Alabama or whomever. Who'd you say Alabama was playing in? Who was playing Citadel?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Good job.
Plays the Citadel
But
in
again,
November in Oxford.
They all go like this. All right, well, this is what's been put in front of us. The league gives us this, and then we go and we make this little weird partnership
They're
with.
giving themselves a bye week in November. You can sit out players in those games.
Of course, and they do. And it's usually 2 weeks before. That game is typically 2 weeks before the conference championship game.
2 or 3, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which obviously, if you're in Alabama or Georgia or Texas or whomever, you're going, awesome. We get a week off before.
Ole Miss plays the Citadel on November 8th.
Yeah.
Right before they play Florida the next Saturday.
It's crazy.
That's
no
after
point.
the South Carolina
And by
game.
the way, the TV product takes a massive dip that week. Everybody just takes a week off from watching it too if you're an SEC fan. Do you think Alabama fans, aside from it being a social event, care about them playing these awful teams during the middle of November? Or Georgia? Imagine Missouri when they have to sit down against, like I said, I don't know, one of these directional South Carolina schools you've never heard of. Or the ones that have a name and you don't know where they're actually located. Talking to you, Mercer.
UT Martin, Murray State.
How many people thought that UT Martin was in Texas? I did for a long time. Oh, the University of Texas Martin? No, it's Tennessee. Oh, okay. All right. It makes me mad. Because all I look at is I look and I say, and guess who has the biggest knock on them of all these conferences? We just went through a list of why the Big 12 is not listed. It's because from a win-loss perspective, purely, add a win to every one of those schedules last year for BYU, Arizona State, Colorado even. You take away a conference game and you add one of those garbage games in November. Think about BYU not having to worry about that stupid Kansas game that ruined their season last year, right?
Yeah, what if they had scheduled Utah Tech that week?
In that very week, because that's when it was. Mm-hmm. You're talking about middle November. And they go in there.
They're all banged up. They're beat up.
Their nose is bleeding, and they go in there and they take on a Kansas team who's suddenly got some giant punch in the arm.
And some kind of weird bounce on a punt ruins their perfect season.
And they started beating everybody. Jake Retzlaff decided to throw the worst fade pass in the world. Guess what? You get away with that when you're playing Chattanooga. So, do you see what I'm saying? You can dog the conferences all you want. And I'm not saying that the Big 12 schedule and the SEC schedule are the same. But what you're doing is from a week in and week out basis. Alabama, or Georgia in this case, Georgia is playing 9 big Power 4 teams this year. They're playing 9 Power 4 teams this year. And one of them that's out of conference is Georgia Tech, who's out of the top 70 in college football rankings right now. So don't tell me that it just means more. Make it mean more. Show everybody you can put together a 10-game plus schedule of Power 4 teams. And the teams that are playing 11 in the Big 12, by the way, they're going to pay the price. They will likely be more often than not left out of the conversation because they took an extra loss somewhere in there. And Ole Miss will just look at that record and go, yeah, it means more in the SEC. Anyway, all right. That's my rant. Is that about right?
Yeah, and I agree that there has to be some standard scheduling
I love the
similarity
idea
across the board so that if you're playing for the same national championship, then the scheduling must be on the same page across the board.
10 Power 4 teams for a Power 4.
A 9-game conference schedule.
And no FCS
The
teams
ACC's not
anymore.
off the hook here either.
Right.
The ACC's not off the hook here either.
and no FCS teams. Stop it.
Yep.
Stop. And stop acting like, well, it's good for that little school. Come on. They can find $500,000 somewhere else. Don't do it on the backs of these SEC teams making it into the college football playoff over your team. All right? That's the big grift. Oh, they get more money out of it. Stop. Just play better football. Now with 16 teams in, it means more. And the losses don't mean as much as they used to. You don't have to be undefeated anymore. So be good and then just play. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. When we return, got ourselves we have our conversation today with Brian Taylor. Real Golf Radio. Of course, BT is out at Oakmont. He and Bob Casper do a phenomenal job covering these majors. We're going to talk a little bit about what this thing looks like going forward here. The payout is amazing this year. It's massive. Scotty Scheffler has said that this may be the toughest golf course ever.
Whoa.
Not this year, not in this month, ever. Stay right here, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The biggest name. You're locked into JJ and Alex. With the insight and analysis on the teams you can't live without. Presented by G2G Bars. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This U.S. Open update is brought to you by Mountain Land Supply, Zions Bank, Black Desert Resort, Hoops Vision, and Siegfried and Jensen. And now, Real Golf Radio's Brian Taylor.
I kind of equate some of the major tests to, like the majors in tennis, you're playing on a different surface. Like you got grass, clay, and then a hard court, and it's a different style of game. And the U.S. Open compared to the Masters is a completely different type of test. I think in the Masters you have a lot more shot making when you get around the greens because it's a lot of fairway. There's pine straw. There's not really the rough factor. And then when you get here, it's a lot of hacking out of the rough. They still have to be extremely precise, but it's a bit more of like when you talk about strength and power, I think that becomes more of a factor at these tournaments because when you hit in the rough, you got to muscle it out of there. And it's just a different type of test than you see at the Masters. Both of them are fantastic tests. This is probably the hardest golf course that we'll play maybe ever. And, that's pretty much all it is. It's just a different type of test.
That was the number one golfer in the world, Scotty Scheffler, talking about I like the comparisons there. It helps kind of explain the role that the U.S. Open has had over the years in the groups of majors and how every one of these is a little bit different. And joining us on the program right now, he's Brian Taylor, Real Golf Radio. You can hear he and Bob Casper every weekend right here on the KSL Sports Zone every Saturday morning. BT, is that about right from Scotty Scheffler that this is the hardest golf course maybe ever?
Yeah, that's the identity of Oakmont. That's the whole purpose for which it was built, was to be the hardest test in golf. And that was back at the turn of the century. I'm talking the last century. And so, I think he's right. I actually really like that comparison. You always talk about horses for courses and things like that. This is definitely one that I think is going to require some patience above all, right? You're going to have to execute. But you just have to know that you're going to make bogeys, and you're probably going to make a lot of them. And so it's just eliminating the double bogeys and the triple bogeys, and ones that'll just send you down the road. It's going to be interesting to see. I will tell you that Mother Nature has been on the side of the players. The golf course is still fairly moist, given the amount of rain that they've had, and it's kind of soft, and so. Balls are going to stay in the fairway. Balls are going to hold the greens a little bit better. Although from what I saw today, that's probably, like I said, that's in the players' favor because I think the USGA and the president of Oakmont and the club membership, they wanted to see this thing get really, really ugly, if you will, like well over par. And I think you're going to see probably under par win at this point.
Even with the course being this difficult, Scotty Scheffler is still a historic favorite ahead of the U.S. Open. Biggest favorite since 2009. When Tiger Woods was at his peak. If he wins his third major at age 28 and this is the major he wins, where does that place him?
Well, he's already doing things that only Jack and Tiger have done as far as winning 3 majors and 15 tour events all before the age of 29 or something like that. So he's starting to get those comparisons. Now, what's interesting is Rory had those comparisons early on. You remember Rory was winning PGA championships by record margins, breaking Jack Nicklaus's record PGA championship wins, by number of strokes and things like that. So you start to compare, and that's actually what I love about golf is that you can compare historically, the greats from the different eras, even if things are a little different now. I think it's cool to see that you're doing things that those greats did, eventually becoming the greats. The key is how long does that window stay open? And I think if you look back, you look at Jack, you look at Arnold Palmer, some of those guys, Tom Watson, you start looking at windows that stayed open for quite a while, like they won over decades. Tiger's dominance was really from 97 to 2009. And then he had another little clip there with winning the Masters a few years ago. So that was about a decade. And that, if you compare it maybe to some of the other players, you'd think that's relatively short. But today's players, those windows sometimes last 12 months. Sometimes they last 2 years. But Rory had a window. Koepka had a window. Jordan Spieth had a window. You start looking at some of these players and you go, man, they can't miss. Scottie Scheffler's window is wide open right now. But in order to be one of the greats of all time, you have to kind of keep it going even through the downtimes. That's what made Rory's win at the Masters so special. And now we'll see what Scottie does. So long answer to your question, it's huge. He'll have the third leg of the Grand Slam. Now all of a sudden we're talking career Grand Slam talk at Royal Portrush next month with Scottie Scheffler. So, adding Oakmont to Augusta and Quail Hollow for Scottie would be amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about people other than Scottie. Bryson DeChambeau has been playing some phenomenal golf over the past couple of years as well. In terms of favorites across the board, Scottie's number one, but then it goes Bryson, Jon Rahm. Rory, I don't know how he feels about things right now, but he's still, the one of the favorites, of course, because he's one of the best golfers still in the world. Ludwig Ahlberg is I think in the fifth spot. Xander Schauffele. Who among the names, and maybe I am not mentioning one that you're thinking of, could make a run at Oakmont, and maybe this is a course for some of these horses who are out there who go, I like the style of this. Maybe somebody who hits better fairways or more fairways than somebody else.
Yeah, fairways are going to be a premium, but I think even the straightest hitters are going to find some trouble out there. And I like somebody, you think about I think every one of the players, 9 previous U.S. Open champions here at Oakmont have eventually throughout their career won at least 2 major championships. And so you start looking at guys that those are greats, right? Those are champions. Those are guys that know how to win on the biggest stage. And so even if you said, hey, I'm going to take this straightest hitter, is that a guy that is a major championship caliber player, for instance, right? So that's something to consider. But let's go back to your comment. You mentioned Bryson. We watched a little bit of Bryson today out there in his practice round. I think it's suffice it to say that Bryson is the biggest star in golf, right? I'm not saying he's the best player, but he's the biggest star. The way people clamored to get a glimpse of Bryson, and I'm not talking just the young kids. I was watching some old, these older guys, and I'm an older guy now, right? So, but these guys were in my category, and they're like, hey, did you see that video? Yeah, I was watching that video Bryson put out. And I just kind of looked at Bob and I'm like, wow. I'm like, I don't watch YouTube golf. So for me, I hear about it. I know he's got billions of views and all that stuff. I'm just like, not my thing. But, you start to get a sense of when the people that are out there, they want Bryson. And it's amazing. It's remarkable what he's done. There's no question about it. Can he win? It's going to be an interesting test. Bryson, sometimes, I think to his detriment, overanalyzes, over-scientifies, is that a word?
Sure, I got it.
Yeah, you're with me. His approach to things, right? Phil did that on occasion where he would go no driver strategy on a course or a 2-driver strategy on a course, things like that. I don't know what Bryson's going to do. Can he hold back? He's got so much power. Can he hold back enough to hit fairways? That's going to be really fascinating. He certainly has the mental fortitude to win another major. He'd join Tiger Woods. And I'm forgetting only one other player to have won 3 U.S. Opens, right? So you got a few players that have won 4, including Jack and Bobby Jones and Hogan. But, there's only 2 that have won 3. Bryson's in that category of a fairly lengthy list of players that have won 2. And so that would put him into some rare air if he was to go on to win. You also mentioned Rory. I'll tell you, I thought this was going to be a parade for Rory. I thought coming off how much adoration he had following his win at the Masters, I thought this is the guy, he's got all the weight off his shoulders. Watch him just go out and tear it up because he has no more burdens, nothing to prove, all of that. It's actually the opposite. He's completely flat. And some of the things he says to me is mystifying. Now, if he just came out and said, guys, I am just riding the fruits of my labors. He's mentioned that a couple times. And I'm just not interested in really grinding it out right now. I just want to sort of coast the rest of this year. I'll see about getting serious later, and I'll let you know. Fine. So I think we all just expected him to go on this run. Maybe we need to adjust our expectations because he doesn't seem anywhere near ready to go out and win another major. So there's Rory. Other players, I think Patrick Cantlay is an interesting one. Not a huge fan of Cantlay per se, at least his kind of style of golf, but he's a gritty guy. Xander Schauffele has an impeccable U.S. Open record for not having won one. And then who else am I?
Maybe Alberg?
Yeah, Oberg is interesting. He's only playing his second, right? So we don't have a lot of history, but he's been a huge impact player early on. John Rahm is the other one I was going to mention. Rahm's won a U.S. Open. And, again, playing on LIV, we don't see him week in, week out, but he certainly got a little taste of it at the PGA, didn't he? And he's a phenomenal player. He's a gritty player. He's the kind of gritty guy that could do well out here. So Sepp Straka is my kind of dark horse guy, but I think those are – I think Rahm – I think Scheffler's the runaway favorite, but I think there's going to be some others going to push him for sure.
You mentioned Rory, and it's interesting. He admitted he had an 81 practice round, didn't make the cut last week at the Canadian Open. We know what happened 9 years ago at Oakmont for him. What have you seen a golfer go through something like this where they have their greatest moment and then you have concerns like this? How concerned are you about Rory moving forward?
It's a head scratcher. I mean, honestly, I haven't seen anything like it. You would think that the biggest thing that we talked about Rory was he hadn't won a major in 10 years. And so you're saying, well, he's going to have to win another one just to get that monkey off his back to free him up to be able to win the Masters, the one that has eluded him since, he first jumped on the scene in 2011. And, so you thought, that would happen. And then he goes out and wins. And then he's on his hands and knees and he's sobbing. And we talked about this after the Masters. It's as if everyone watching, media, fellow competitor, spectator, patron, the whole 9 yards, they were all on that same emotional ride with him. Anything in your life that you felt was a struggle that you somehow were able to overcome came out in what Rory did. It played out on that stage, the great stage there at Augusta National. And so he was so beloved. And I'm telling you, like, to get upset about the driver failing and not talking to the media and letting that story run rampant, and which it was really a non-story, but it became a story because he didn't talk. And then some of the comments at the Canadian Open and then missing the cut and then his comments here this week, it just is – like, I swear the guy needs a PR firm or something. It's remarkable to me how – no, really. I think – I'm like, how does a guy blow it like that?
Right.
Like, I don't know if I've ever seen that. Like, like I said, this should be his parade, and it's just it's strange. I think most people are like, how do I not – I'm trying to like this guy, but how do I like him?
Yeah.
We were, it's hard because there's a lot of players crossing over at these majors between – the PGA Tour and LIV, and I think we've all kind of gotten past the whole LIV versus PGA, but it is a weird thing still to look at. How much has golf as a game overall taken a hit because of those two leagues being separated now? Because I wonder if we're getting the best golf week in and week out on the non-major weeks. Yeah,
so just to clarify, and I think it's just semantics, but you say golf. I don't think golf has taken a hit from it at all. Golf's probably, the USGA talked about that in their press conference today, how many millions and millions of players are people are taking up the game, right. And especially in categories like women and juniors and, minorities and all that kind of stuff. So I think golf itself is probably at maybe an all-time high. Professional golf, which again, I think is what you were saying. Mm-hmm. I think the fans suffer from it just because you don't have the stars. This is what I didn't like about it from the beginning, and I've been pretty open about this. We cover golf every single week on Real Golf Radio, and we think golf is the biggest thing in the world. But we know when you step back and take a bigger view that golf is a small slice of the sports pie. a very small slice. And so when you start taking that little slice and you start fractioning that up and pulling out the few stars, I mean, if you were to say, hey, name the biggest stars on the PGA Tour right now, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy. But it's not as if the stars start ripping off the top like NBA, NFL, all that kind of stuff. And so I think the fans suffer, and I think the sponsors suffer. I think the ticket gates suffer. I think all of that suffers because you don't end up with the best product. The best product has the best players, and there's compelling, reasons to tune in or show up or spend your sponsorship dollars or whatever on those events because you want those players, and those players are going to draw eyeballs, and the whole works. So I do think from that standpoint, the professional game has suffered from it, but golf itself, I think, is good. Where it goes from here, I don't know. I think we're going to count on, new stars coming up and hopefully filling both sides if they continue to go. But, right now thankfully we have these majors and they all get to come together. And I think it's definitely ramped up the major interest, hasn't it? Like these 4 events every year have even stronger interest because of everybody coming together. So maybe they're the winners amongst everybody else.
Tony Finau tied for 3rd last year at the U.S. Open. He's got top 20 finishes at the Truist and PGA Championship. Is he trending in the right direction to have impact this week?
I would like to think so. I mean, you got Tony who's playing in his 10th U.S. Open. He's made 5 cuts. He's got 3 top 10s, and as you mentioned, is his best finish last year, tied for 3rd at Pinehurst. He got himself in contention at Quail Hollow last month, and it had heavy rough. And so I definitely thought I saw some momentum coming out of Tony's game last month at Quail Hollow. But then I see him at Memorial putting one-handed, and that leaves me a little bit concerned for trying to navigate these greens. I think you have to have both hands on the wheel at Oakmont if you want to be able to get through and make it to the weekend, let alone contend. So, I mean, look, Tony was built for big-time golf tournaments and big-time golf courses. So it would stand to reason that this one would be something that he would play well at. Again, it's just a matter of, his tee shots have been kind of the bugaboo this year. And like I said, saw some improvement at Quail Hollow. So as long as that continues to improve and he can keep it down the fairway, his iron game's been pretty sharp all year. So we'll see how he does.
The army of lawnmowers is getting a lot of attention, and Brian Taylor is one of those guys. You might see him. He's like the 9th mower in those long lines out there. You can see him out there. There was quite a sight to behold out there at Oakmont for them to keep those 5.5-inch roughs out there, BT. We love seeing it, though.
So what would be cooler, to be the 9th mower in the line or to be the guy, like to be the 4th guy dragging the infield in the 7th inning doing the YMCA kind of thing.
There's part of me that goes, I mowed that grass. You know what I mean? Like that would have been pretty darn cool to be able to do that. BT, Real Golf Radio, he and Bob Casper every weekend right here on the KSL Sports Zone Saturday morning, special edition, of course. Have fun, and we'll be listening for you guys on Saturday, and we're looking forward to a breakdown also next week.
Yeah, you got it. It's going to be a fun one, guys. Hope you all tune in, and we'll see how this all shakes out.
There you go. BT. Real Golf Radio.
You know where you can watch the U.S. Open. Starting Friday at 11 a.m. on KSL 5.
Really?
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
Well, USA Network has Thursdays.
Okay. I like it.
We're not USA Network. We are NBC. So there you go.
Back to you. Hey,
there's your that TV segment we scrapped because it sucked.
It's a little plug. Well, no, we still bring it up when we're talking ratings. That's your deal, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Studio
that.
5 Sports.
There you go.
There's your Studio 5 Sports update.
Come on, man. All right, nominate that youth sports volunteer for the Hercules Hero of the Week award. Submit that nomination, KSLSports.com/contest. Every Thursday afternoon, we read those off. That's tomorrow. So KSLSports.com/contest. Nominate a Hercules Hero of the Week award. And these folks get an award from a prize from Beehive Meals and a prize from Hercules First Federal Credit Union. So there you go. We'll take a break. We'll come back. I've got a top 10 for you. Get ready for this one. It's a deep cut, so stay right here at 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best coverage of the Jazz, Utes, and Cougars is right here on The Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back, everybody. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The passing of Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys brings us all the Beach Boy rejoins today. Yeah, it's good stuff. Mm-hmm. It's such interesting music, but like it's so iconic. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like if my kid heard this, they'd roll their eyes so hard at it. You know what I mean? Unless it was in a movie they already liked.
It's such a great summer vibe.
It is. You can absolutely. That's
Timeless.
exactly right. Hey, dads, for Father's Day, throw it out there on. Get that Bluetooth speaker pumping on the patio. Just Beach Boy hits, and you're gonna have a good vibe this weekend. 100%.
These songs are 60 years old, and they're still great.
Caller number 12 right now. That reminds me, we've got some tickets to give away. Since it's a Win Ticket Wednesday, you can be caller number 12 and win tickets to see Jason Aldean, part of the Full Throttle Tour coming to Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on July 26th. So 801-575-ZONE. That's 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-9663. Today is the day, and right now is that time to call right now and be caller number 12 and win 2 tickets to see Jason Aldean and the Full Throttle Tour out of Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. 801-575-ZONE. That's all they have to do is give us a call right now. 801-575-ZONE. Quick top 10 game here, JJ. You ready for this?
Yeah.
I don't know how much help you're going to get from our producer, Alex, here, because I'm sure he's going to start answering. He always puts these contests right here so that he can go, oh, shoot, I wish I could have helped you.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you pointed that out just now.
He goes,
what's up with that?
That is not true.
We came in from the break.
You have so many breaks to do these contests.
We came in from the break, and what did he say? Oh, number one priority. This is his voice, by the way. Number one priority is to get the get this Win Ticket Wednesday tickets given away. I said, okay. And then I did it. Now, guess what he's doing? Answering phone calls. So here we go. He does have to hit the button for the timer though to go off. So without further ado, here's what the top 10 is today. We talked about the cupcakes that are those middle of November games.
Cupcakes are tasty, but lack substance.
Yes, they do. A lot of these games are from the SoCon and from the Ohio Valley Conference. JJ, I've got the 11 members of the Ohio Valley Conference staring me in the eyes right now.
The Ohio Valley.
The Ohio Valley Football Conference.
Okay.
I've got all 11 right in front of me, and I need you to name them off. And you've got 60 seconds to do it. Ready, go.
Murray State, Austin P.
Wait.
Southern Illinois, Eastern Illinois.
Wait, ding.
I'm looking for Ohio teams here. Ohio Valley's not even.
That's what's
UT
funny
Martin.
about it.
UT
Ding.
Martin. Middle Tennessee State, East Tennessee State.
You're just saying directional
Arkansas,
Tennessee?
Central Arkansas.
Hold on.
Wichita State. I know that's wrong. I don't care. I'm just trying to throw out names here. How many schools are there in that?
11.
Is that FCS?
11 FCS.
And it wasn't Murray State. Oh, gosh. Is there an Indiana school I'm missing?
Ooh.
Evansville. What Indiana football programs? Is there Ohio Dayton?
You know Dayton's not in the
I don't know.
Ohio Valley.
Not Northern Illinois. And Missouri school? Oh, man, that didn't go well.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Now, it's actually a phenomenal list that we just went through. The fact that JJ, who probably knows more about sports than any other person I know, and if somebody's going to know a bunch of rando schools. Now, to his credit, there's a lot of things that are absolutely running around in his head for schools because you've got the Missouri Valley Conference, you got the Ohio Valley Conference, you got SoCon, okay? The Ohio Valley Conferences, okay? Which 4 of them are going to be playing SEC teams in November. And I think you only got 3. The University of Arkansas at Little Rock. Don't forget about those guys.
I knew there was an Arkansas school.
The Trojans. Eastern Illinois.
I got that one.
You got it. Lindenwood.
Lindenwood.
The only private institution in the entire conference.
No. Good luck guessing how much that coach makes.
You were thinking of an M. You kept saying Murray State, but it's Morehead State.
Morehead.
Yeah. Southeast Missouri State.
I knew there was a Missouri school. I couldn't think of it.
Very directional. Southeast Missouri
That's
State.
super directional.
Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville.
Oh, I didn't get the other
Don't forget
Edwardsville
about
part.
Edwardsville.
I left that out.
University of Southern Indiana. That was the Indiana school you might have been thinking of. Tennessee State, Tennessee Tech,
Oh, yeah.
UT Martin you got, and then Western Illinois University.
Western Illinois.
The Leathernecks.
Two directionals. Western Illinois, yeah, they played Weber State in the playoffs a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I forgot them.
But again, some of those sound made up still, even as people who we know the game pretty well. But some of these schools, like,
and they've been hammered by conference realignment.
Should not be playing. All right, we're going to take a break. Conference realignment. What did the Missouri Valley and Ohio Valley schools do? I don't know. All right, we'll come back. We will chat with Eric Sparopoulos, Utah Jazz writer for NBA.com. He'll give us an idea of how this NBA Finals Game 3 is going to look tonight, plus how the Jazz front office promotions have looked. We haven't been able to talk to Eric since the hiring as the president of basketball operations, Austin Ainge. So we'll get with him on that. So stay here, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.